ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Canto 3, Chapter 9, Text 1 to 11. So Brahma's prayers for creative energy. Brahmovacha ज्ञातो ज्ञातोऽसि मेद्या सुचिरान्नानुदेहभाजां न ज्ञायते भगवतो गतिरिति अवध्यं नान्यत्वदस्ति भगवन् अपि तन्न शुद्धं माया गुणव्यतिकराद्यद् उरुर्विभासि.
Lord Brahma said, O my Lord, today, after many, many years of penance, I have come to know about you. Oh, how unfortunate the embodied living entities are, that they are unable to know your personality. My Lord, you are the only knowable object, because there is nothing supreme beyond you. If there is anything supposedly superior to you, it is not the Absolute. You exist as the Supreme by exhibiting the creative energy of matter.
Text 2. Rupam yadetat avabodharasodayena shashvan nivratta tamasa sadanugrahaya ado grihitam avatarshataikabijam yannabhipadma bhavanadaham avirasam.
The form which I see is eternally freed from material contamination and has advented to show mercy to the devotees as a manifestation of internal potency. This incarnation is the origin of many other incarnations, and I am born from the lotus flower grown from your navel home.
Text 3. नातः पराम यद्भवता स्वरूपम् आनन्दं मात्रम् अविधवर्चः पश्यामि विश्वास्रजम् एकमविश्वम् आत्मन् भूतेन्द्रियात्मा मदस्त उपाश्रितोऽस्मि.
O my Lord, I do not see a form superior to your present form of eternal bliss and knowledge. In your impersonal Brahman effulgence in the spiritual sky, there is no occasional change and no deterioration of internal potency. I surrender unto you because whereas I am proud of my material body and senses, your lordship is the cause of the cosmic manifestation, and yet you are untouched by matter.
Text 4. तद्वा इदं भुवनमङ्गलाय ध्याने स्मनोदर्शितं त उपासकानां तस्मै नमो भगवते नुविधेम तुभ्यं यो नादृतो नरकभाग्भिरसत्प्रसङ्गे.
This present form, or any transcendental form expanded by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is equally auspicious for all the universes, since you have manifested this eternal personal form, upon whom your devotees meditate. I therefore offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Those who are destined to be dispatched to the path of hell neglect your personal form because of speculating on material topics.
Text 5. ये तु त्वदीया चरणाम्बुजकोशगन्धं जिघ्रन्ति कर्णविवरे श्रुतिवातनीतं भक्त्या गृहीता चरणापरयच्च तेषां नापयेसनाथ हृदयाम्बुरुहात् स्वपुंसाम्.
O my Lord, persons who smell the aroma of your lotus feet carried by the air of Vedic sound through the holes of the ears accept your devotional service. For them you are never separated from the lotus of their hearts.
Text 6. तावद्भयं द्रविणदेहसुनिमित्तं शोकः स्पृहपुरपरिभवो विपुलश्च लोभः तावन्मामेत्यसद् अवग्रह आर्तिमूलं यावन्न तेन ग्रिमभयं प्रवृणीतलोकः.
O my Lord, the people of the world are embarrassed by all material anxieties. They are always afraid. They always try to protect wealth, body, and friends. They are filled with lamentation and unlawful desires and paraphernalia, and they avariciously base their undertakings on the perishable conceptions of my and mine. As long as they do not take shelter of your safe lotus feet, they are full of such anxieties.
Text 7. दैवेन ते हत धियो भवत प्रसङ्गात् सर्वाशुभपश्यन्मनात् विमुखेन्द्रियाये कुर्वन्ति काम सुखलेशलवायदेन लोभाभिभूत मनसो कुशलानि शाश्वत.
O my Lord, persons who are bereft of the all auspicious performance of chanting and hearing about your transcendental activities are certainly unfortunate and are also bereft of good sense. They engage in inauspicious activities, enjoying sense gratification for a very little while.
Text 8. क्षुद्रत्रिधातुभिरिमामुहुर् शीतोष्णवात वरसेरितरेतराच्छ कामाग्निनाच्युतरुषच सुदुर्भरेण सम्पश्यतु मन उरुक्रमसि दत्ते मे.
O great actor, my lord, all these poor creatures are constantly perplexed by hunger, thirst, severe cold, secretion, and bile, attacked by coughing winter, blasting summer, rains, and many other disturbing elements, and overwhelmed by strong sex urges and indefatigable anger. I take pity on them, and I am very much aggrieved for them.
Text 9. यावत् पृथक्त्वम् इदमात्म इन्द्रियार्थ मायाबलं भगवतो जन एष पश्येत् तावन्न संस्मृतिरशो प्रतिसङ्क्रमेत व्यर्थापि दुःख निवहं वहति क्रियार्था.
O my lord, the material miseries are without factual existence for the soul. Yet as long as the conditioned soul sees the body as meant for sense enjoyment, he cannot get out of the entanglement of material miseries, being influenced by your external energy.
Text 10. अन्यकृतार्थ करणानिशि निश्यन्ना नानामनोरथधिया क्षणभग्ननिद्रः दैवाहतार्थरचनारसायोऽपि देवा युष्मात् प्रसङ्ग विमुखो इह समरन्ति.
Such non-devotees engage their senses in very troublesome and extensive work, and they suffer insomnia at night because their intelligence constantly breaks their sleep with various mental speculations. They are frustrated in all their various plans by supernatural power. Even great sages, if they are against your transcendental topics, must rotate in this material world.
Text 11. Tvam bhakti yoga परिभावितहृत्सरोज आश्याश्रुतीक्षितपथो ननु नाथ पुंसां यद्यधियात उर्गाय विभावयन्ति तद्वपुप्रणयशे सदनुग्रहाय. Thank you, Hare Krishna. Forgive any mistake, please.
O my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become cleansed, and you take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you.
Hare Krishna. Text 12. Nati prasidhati tathopachitopacharer radhitaha suraganer rudibhadrakame yat sarvabhuta dayaya sadala labhyayeko nana janeshva vyata surudayantaratma.
My Lord, you are not very much satisfied by the worship of the demigods, who arrange for your worship very punctuously with various paraphernalia, but who are full of material hankerings. You are situated in everyone's heart as a supersoul, just to show your causeless mercy, and you are the eternal well-wisher, but you are unavailable for the non-devotee.
Text 13. Pumsamato vividha karmabhiradvaradhyai danena chogratapasa paricharyaya cha आराधनं भगवतः सर्व सत्कीर्यार्थै धर्मोऽर्पितः कर्चित् म्रियते नरत्य.
But the pious activities of the people, such as performance of Vedic rituals, charity, austere penances, and transcendental service, performed with a view to worship you and satisfy you by offering you the fruitive results, are also beneficial. Such acts of religion never go in vain.
Text 14. Shashvat Swarupam Mahaseva Nipita Bheda Mohaya Bodha Dhishanaya Namaha Parasmai Vishvodbhava Thilyashyeshu Nimitta Lila Rasayante Nama Idam Chakrumeshwaraya.
Let me offer my obeisances unto the supreme transcendence, who is eternally distinguished by his internal potency. His indistinguishable impersonal feature is realized by intelligence for self-realization. I offer my obeisances unto him who by his pastimes enjoys the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation.
Text 15. Yasyavatara gunakarma vidambanani namani yesu vigame vivasha grunanti teneka janma शमलं सहसैव हित्वा संयात्य पावृतात् मृतं तमजं प्रपद्ये.
Let me take shelter of the lotus feet of him whose incarnations, qualities, and activities are mysterious imitations of worldly affairs. One who invokes his transcendental names, even unconsciously, at the time he quits his life, is certainly washed immediately of the sins of many, many births, and attains him without fail.
Text 16. यो वा अहं च गिरिशश्वविभू स्वयं च स्थिति उद्भव प्रलय हेतव आत्ममूलम् भित्त्वा त्रिपाद् एक उरु प्ररोह तस्मै नमो भगवते भुवनरुद्रमाय.
Your lordship is the prime root of the tree of the planetary systems. This tree has grown by first penetrating the material nature in three trunks as me, Shiva, and you, the Almighty, for creation, maintenance, and dissolution. And we three have grown with many branches. Therefore I offer my obeisances unto you, the tree of the cosmic manifestation.
Text 17. लोको विकर्म निरतः कुशले प्रमत्तः कर्मण्ययं त्वदुदिते भवदर्चने स्वे यस्तावदस्य बलवानिह जीतविताशां सद्यश्चिन्नतीत्य अनिमिषाय नमोस्तु तस्मै.
People in general all engage in foolish acts, not in the really beneficial activities enunciated directly by you for their guidance. As long as their tendency for foolish work remains powerful, all their plans in the struggle for existence will be cut to pieces. I therefore offer my obeisances unto him who acts as eternal time.
Text 18. Yasmad bhimemya Yasmad bibhimya hamapi Viparardhanishan Dhyastiha Sakala Lokan Maskritam Yat Te Te Tapo Bahusavo Varurut Samanastasmai Namo Bhagavate Dhimkhaya Tubhyam.
Your lordship, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you, who are indefatigable, time, and the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Although I am situated in an abode which will continue to exist for a time duration of two paradhas, although I am the leader of all other planets in the universe, and although I have undergone many, many years of penance for self-realization, still I offer my respects unto you.
Text 19. Tiryan Manushya Vibudadishu Jiva Yonisha Atmechayatma Krita Setu Paripasyayayaha Reme Niraste Vishayorapyavarudva Dehas Tasmai Namo Bhagavate Purushottamaya.
O my lord, by your own will you appear in the various species of living entities, among animals lower than human beings as well as among the demigods, to perform your transcendental pastimes. You are not affected by material contamination. You come just to fulfill the obligations of your own principles of religion, and therefore, O Supreme Personality, I offer my obeisances unto you for manifesting such different forms.
Text 20. Yo vidyayano vahatopi darshadravitya nidramuvaha jathari krutalokayatraha antarjale शानुकूलाम् भीमोर्मिमालिनि जनस्य सुखं विवृणवणम्.
My lord, you accept the pleasure of sleeping in the water of devastation, where there are violent waves, and you enjoy pleasure on the bed of snakes, showing the happiness of your sleep in to intelligent persons. At that time, all the universal planets are stationed within your abdomen.
Text 21. Yannaभिपद्मा भवनाधमास्तमीयत्य लोकत्रयोपकरणो यदनुग्रहेण तस्मै नमस्त उदरस्थभवाय योगन् इन्द्रावसान् विकसन्न लिनेक्षणाय.
O object of my worship, I am born from the house of your lotus navel for the purpose of creating the universe by your mercy. All these planets of the universe were stationed within your transcendental abdomen while you were enjoying sleep. Now your sleep having ended, your eyes are open like blossoming lotuses in the morning.
Text 22. Soyam samasta jagatam suyadek atma satvena yanmudayate bhagavan bhagin tanaiv me drusham manusprushata vashaham thaham shrakshyami purvavidam pranata priyoso.
Let the Supreme Lord be merciful towards me. He is the one friend and soul of all living entities in the world, and he maintains all for their ultimate happiness by his 6 transcendental opulences. May he be merciful towards me so that I, as before, may be empowered with the introspection to create, for I am also one of the surrendered souls who are dear to the Lord. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Please forgive me for my mistakes.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's my great pleasure to introduce the exalted devotee, His Grace, Madan Prabhuji. He was born in a South Indian Brahmin family, and he grew up being attracted to transcendental pastimes of Sri Krishna and studied Gita, Bhagavad Gita in his student days. It was in Sweden many years later that he met the sincere devotees, ISKCON devotees, who introduced him to Gaura Nitai and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya. He started chanting when he visited Alnwick ISKCON community in the outskirts of Stockholm and started participating in various services. Upon moving back to UK, he joined the Bhakti Vriksha at Manor. He joined School of Bhakti as a volunteer in the training team. Now Prabhuji is running his own sanghas in one of the Manor and is also one of Manor Sangha coordinators and participates in Manor services, and he gives classes at Manor and other online sanghas. So a warm welcome to Madan Prabhuji, His Grace Madan Prabhuji. So without further delay, over to you, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Mataji. I think that was a very kind introduction. And thank you all for your wonderful recitations. This is my first class, so please forgive, like my, like offenses if I'm, like as I commit. I'm sure I'll be committing lots of offenses, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to really, be with you all today. So let's begin with the Mangalacharan. So I can, if I can request you to close your eyes and join me. ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वापदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरु श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुं वैष्णवंश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगना रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपदान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्ता राधाकान्ता नमोऽस्तु ते। तप्त कंचन गौरंगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नम ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पश्यता देशतारिणे। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासदि गौर भक्तवृंदा। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्णा हरे 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 रामा राम राम हरे हरे। Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai. Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare
On, be-
Krishna.
on behalf of all the devotees, may I welcome you to Chad. It's an honor and privilege to have your association, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji, for having me here. So can I request to be a co-host so that I can share my screen?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Yes, you are the co-host now.
I'm a co-host? Okay, fine. Thank you so much. So now
Okay.
what I'm going to do, let's begin with the invocation prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So today we are going to talk about Canto 3, Chapter 9, verses 10 and 11. It might be good to do a short reflection on how we have come to where we are today. So this is the chapter which is Brahma's prayers for creative energy. And if we were to look at chapter 8, that's where the entire creation was made. So this was a time when Garbhodaka Sakya Vishnu was lying in the depths of the ocean, and his eyes were half closed, and he was meditating on his own internal potency. And he lied in that in that position for a thousand, for 1,000 cycles of the yogas, and that's when the fruitive activities of all the living entities started manifesting itself, and a beautiful lotus bud emerged from his navel, and within that, the personality of Vedic wisdom, or the self-born that we know as Lord Brahma. So Lord Brahma wakes up and he finds himself in this lotus world, beautiful. He does not really understand where exactly he is, and he cannot really understand the creation. He cannot understand the lotus bud, nor can he understand himself. And so he undertakes, and he looks at himself, and he sees himself on top of the lotus bud, and he says, "I'm sure that like this originates from somewhere down." And so he then travels down the water in the stem of the bud, and then he comes very close to the navel of Lord Vishnu. And he cannot really see anything. He still is not. He's still quite perplexed, and he's none the wiser, because he still cannot understand the creation. He cannot understand the lotus bud nor himself. So then he goes back. he climbs up and then he comes back to the lotus bud, and this is when he meditates for 1,000 years, 4,000 Brahma years. And he meditates on the name of the Lord, on the form of the Lord. And when he does that, then the Lord grants him with a vision, and then he's able to really see the Lord. And there are many verses in the previous chapter which describes his opulences. They are beautiful, so I would really invite you to read them. And he's so overwhelmed with ecstasy when he sees the Lord that he offers his prayers, and that's where we start off this particular chapter. And when we come to chapter 10, when we come to verse 10 and 11, they're quite interesting, because one talks about the symptoms of the non-devotee and the other talks about the symptoms of the devotee. And that's really what we're going to try to explore. The purports are quite long, especially in one of them. So what I'll do is I'll read the Sanskrit verse, and then we'll go through the purport. I'll pick up some key messages, reflections from my side, and then also invite you to share your reflections, and then we move on to the next verse. So let me start sharing my screen. So this is Canto 3, chapter 9, verse 10. Ahanya pritarthakarana nishi nishayana Nana manoratha diyakshana bhagna nidraha Daivahatartha rachana rishayopi deva Yushmat prasanga vimuka iha samsaranti. Would somebody like to read the translation for us?
May I, Prabhuji?
Yes, Mataji,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Such non-devotees engage their senses in very troublesome and extensive work, and they suffer insomnia at night because their intelligence constantly breaks their sleep with various mental speculations. They are frustrated in all their various plans by supernatural power. Even great sages, if they are against your transcendental topics, must rotate in this material world. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So this describes the symptoms of non-devotees. In fact, before this, Lord Brahma has been speaking about how we live in a world of misery where we are constantly perplexed, bewildered. And in this, he specifically speaks about the focus that we have on the work that we do, and how a lot of our attention throughout this world really focuses on leading on working hard, for example. And Prabhupada, in many instances in his purports, etc., he talks of such people as mudas, or donkeys or asses, who really perform a lot of hard work without really really focusing on the right things. And that's what that's what is the essence of this particular verse. And within this, let's really start looking at the purport, and we will I'll kind of share some of my reflections, pick up some of the key points that really stands out for me. So Prabhupada mentions very, very importantly that people who have no taste for the devotional service of the Lord are occupied in material engagements, because as our senses, we have our mind, we have a propensity to desire. And if we don't have a desire for devotional service of the Lord, then clearly we need to put our desires in some other place, and that comes in the form of material engagements. And most of them engage during the daytime in hard physical labor. So um, most of the time we ask ourselves, what is really a definition of success? And when we have grown up and when we have had an education, so we have a university education. So the notion of material success is really about aspiring for um, you know like um, big jobs, high, big paying jobs, and then becoming a VP of a company, running your own business, and that really is how the world defines as success. And many of us really get caught up in that particular thing, and we really spend our time on a lot of hard physical labor. So here, Prabhupada actually talks something very interestingly. So he mentions that factory is another name for hell. And that's because not so much about doing the duties itself, but because it actually, creates, it engages so much of our, senses that we're not really able to come out of that. And what happens is that during the day, we spend a lot of our time, working hard, and then at night, we try to engage our senses in the most abominable ways, and yeah, and we work hard, we party hard. So I'm sure you probably have heard that expression before. And oh, you're working hard is also, it doesn't make sense because you're again using it to gratify yourself. And partying hard again doesn't make sense because you're doing it just for your material senses. And what happens when you lead a life like this? Prabhupada says that you don't really get any rest, and you feel quite sleepy in the morning because you don't really have any sufficient rest, and then you get caught up in this particular cycle. And many of us in the world really spend our time doing this. So the non-devotees who do not really have, the Lord in the center of their activities and of their life, they just keep expanding, and they keep getting caught in this cycle. And Prabhupada also makes a reference to some of the great scientists, because we think of the great scientists and thinkers with the utmost admiration, and that is a specific example that Prabhupada mentions here about a great scientist who may make discoveries. So now here he has specifically been makes a reference to someone whom we probably have seen the movie recently, which is of Oppenheimer. So he's a great scientist. He was awarded the Nobel Prize, and we also know that um, he was the inventor of the atomic bomb, and we know how much of destruction it's caused in the world, how many people were killed, and and he got an award for that. So, did he really commit any? Did he really commit a service to mankind, or did he commit a disservice? Is really a question I wanted to leave with you all. It's probably quite apparent. And what does it mean? So he may have, got a lot of accolades in this particular lifetime, but he himself, did refer to the Gita, because he knew he did quote from the Gita, and he felt that it was really something that he should not have done. But because it was such a terrible disservice to mankind, so clearly he had to undergo the reactions, and so he had to come through this, process of birth and death. And that's really something that many of us lead lives of as non-devotees. So any reflections on that before I move on? Any comments? Feel free to unmute yourself, or you can put it on chat as well. Any reflections?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please can I accept my humble obeisances of Good Srila Prabhupada.
Hare
Thank you,
Krishna.
Prabhuji. Thank you. You are talking about Oppenheimer. When he launched, when they tried the first atomic bomb, he recited the verse in Bhagavad Gita, Kalu Smitai Mayam. That's what he recited. Thank you for bringing that up, Hare Krishna.
Thank you. And we recognize and we celebrate, and we give awards for exactly the wrong things, isn't it? So this is a good example of that. Thanks, Mataji. And and what this verse also says is that it's just not like the non-devotees, but even sages or averse to the principles of devotional service are condemned to undergo the terms of material existence. And what Prabhupada talks about here is that we have quite a number of sages and godly people who invent their own systems of religion, and they then get a very strong fan following, and then many of the devotees they follow them, And Prabhupada warns us against such sages, because even those great sages, if they don't really refer to any devotional service of the Supreme Lord, then there can be no religious principle. And he's very, very categorical when he says that there cannot be any religious principle. Why is this? Why am I not able to select? Okay, so there cannot be any religious principle without devotional service to the Lord, and anything else is going to be should just be seen as something which is irreligion. And and there are like sages who say, we have got the same, we got like amazing mystic powers. And there is a guru who currently has got a very large following in India. And he has also proudly mentioned that he's not really read the scriptures, he's not read the Gita. And yet there are so many people following him. It's quite important that we are quite, we should be beware of such gurus in the first place. And Prabhupada also says something very interesting here that also caught my attention, which is even the impersonal feature and all-pervading localized feature cannot be on an equal level with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So what if we have a partial realization, and we we move on to impersonal jyoti? And that's where we do find that a lot of the impersonalists, they take a lot of time, trouble to get to go in the path of self liberation, and then they come to the effulgent sky, and then they believe that they have attained a self liberation. But that's only partial liberation, because there are still at least two levels. So you have the Paramatma, then the Bhagavan. And because they are not really connecting, they are not really realizing.
Krishna Prabhuji, we cannot hear you. I don't know about others, but I cannot hear you.
Can you hear me now? Hare Krishna, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Induleka Mataji, can you hear me now?
It's very far. I don't know if other devotees can hear you, please. But I
Yes, we can hear
Yes,
you.
we can hear Mataji.
Yeah, we can hear you, Madan Prabhu.
Okay.
We can hear.
Thanks, Induleka Mataji. So maybe you may just want to come back and yeah. So I'll move on. So in terms of the Brahma Jyoti, so we have like three levels of realization. We have the Brahma Jyoti, and the impersonalists, they are happy with that particular realization. They don't want to really appreciate, or they don't want to really get the realization where they accept the Lord in his personal form. So they lose out on the realization through Paramatma and then Brahman. And because they're not situated in devotional service, they glide down again. So you may get partially realized in Brahmajyoti, but you will not stay there, because most of the time, because you're still in Maya, because you're still and you're still not really connected with the Lord in terms of devotional service. So you will again glide down. So it's very, very temporary. So you can stay for like thousands of years in the Brahmajyoti, in the effulgent sky, but then you will still keep coming down. And so that's not really where one wants to be, but that's where the non-devotees are. And this is something that so we can read this out. Like, persons who are falsely under the impression of being liberated without devotional service to the Lord may reach the goal of the Brahma Jyoti, but because of their impure consciousness and for want of shelter in the Vaikuntha Lok, such so-called liberated persons again fall down into material existence. And this is really something that we need to be wary of. So why have a partial realization when you can have full realization that can help you achieve full liberation and breaking the cycle of birth and death? Any reflections before I move on, or any comments?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please accept
Yes,
my humble
Mataji.
obeisance. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All I wanted to say is, Krishna says that if you just meditate, then whatever pious activities you credited, you'll go and merge, and then you get bored, because the soul is part and parcel of Krishna, and Krishna is made of he's blissful and he wants to enjoy. So we want to do something, we want to be active. And so he's saying, why you want to waste time going through via, and why don't you just come to me directly? And the way to do it is by taking to devotional service, and then you can serve me, because that's the dharma of the soul. This is my understanding. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. I think that was beautifully put. So, how can you really have devotional service if if you merge into the Brahma Jyoti? So there is really no one to serve, isn't it? Because you're merging. But the moment you think of the personal relationship that you built with the Lord, and that can be through your natural inclination. I mean, you may have a different rasa or a different mood in which you connect with the Lord, and even that could be some services that could be that could be a bit more dear to you than some of the others. So and that reciprocity is what really builds love, and that love is what really is quite blissful, because when you have the Brahma Jyoti, you're merged, and whom are you going to serve? Because and so you raise a very, very important point, Mataji, and absolutely. So in merging, you kind of lose your essence, and when you lose your essence, you can't really build a personal relationship with the Lord, and and hence it's not really a religion. So thank you for sharing that. And it's also important to remember that the initiator of all the religious principles is the Lord Himself. Now, there are some reasons why we have, or maybe I think that's mentioned a little later in the purport. I'll just come to that. In the sixth canto, we also have a few statements from Yamaraj, who's also like one of the Mahajans. And there are three of them, but I think we'll kind of go through we'll go through the translations. So maybe we can actually have someone to read this for us. Because it's quite important. Who would like to read, I think there are 3 paragraphs, so we can have one devotee each reading each of the paragraphs. So who would like to read this? Himani Mataji.
I can read, Prabhuji.
Okay, so Himani Mataji, why don't you read the first one? And Rasal Leela Mataji can read the one after this.
Sure, Prabhu, thank you.
Thank you.
The principles of religion are initiated by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one else, including the sages and demigods, can manufacture any such principles. Since even great sages and demigods are unauthorized to inaugurate such principles of religion, what to speak of others, the so-called mystics, demons, human beings, Vidyadharas and Charanas living in the lower planets. 12 personalities, Brahma, Narada, Lord Shiva, Kumara, Kapila, Manu, Prahlad Maharaj, Janak Maharaj, Bhishwadev, Bali, Sukhdev Goswami, and Yamraj are agents of the Lord, authorized to speak and propagate the principles of religion. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6. Sorry, I said Bhagavatam, sorry. Canto 6, chapter 3, verses 19 to 21. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Himani Mataji. And so we heard in the previous one about sages who really concoct their own religion, and hence they're not authorized, and hence we cannot really depend on them because that particular wisdom or whatever they share with us is not religion. But what is religion is what has come from the authorized sources, which is from the 12 personalities or the Mahajans. So anything, because they are the agents of the Lord and they have been authorized to speak and propagate. So listening to them or listening to their descendants are what is going to help you to really achieve your true religion, and also be able to have a devotional service towards the Lord. Rasalila Mataji, would you like to read this one?
Sure, Hare Krishna. Okay. The principles of religion are not open to any ordinary living entity. They are just to bring the human beings onto the platform of morality. Non-violence, etc., are necessary for misguided persons because unless one is moral and non-violent, one cannot understand the principles of religion. To understand what is actually religion is very difficult, even if one is situated in the principles of morality and non-violence. It is very confidential because as soon as one is conversant with the real principles of religion, he is at once liberated to the eternal life of bliss and knowledge. Therefore, one who is not situated in the principles of devotional service to the Lord should not pose himself as a religious leader of the innocent public. The Isopanishad emphatically forbids this nonsense in the following mantra.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
So,
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So this is quite important, to recognize. So what is the purpose of religion, of the principles of religion? So an example that we can take is the four regulatory principles. So do the four regulatory principles alone help you achieve full realization? So what would your answer to that question be? Do following the four regulatory principles alone help you realize God?
No,
Thank you, Madam. And why do you say that?
because those are like sinful activities that we have to refrain from, which is like uh, you 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 are on a mode of goodness, but you still need to do bhakti.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Mataji. So, whenever we have principles of religion, and the four regulative principles is one of them, it's because you're actually coming to the state of sattvic. So you have to become like moral and non-violent. But that alone is not going to help you to realize God. For that, you have to really embrace devotional service. So, but it will take you to the platform that allows you to really, move on to the transcendental path. But if you just follow the principles of religion and say that, okay, I have achieved nirvana, that's not really the point. Thank you, Mataji, for sharing that. And then to the end, Prabhupada also says is that a person in ignorance of the principles of religion, therefore does nothing in the matter of religion, is far better than a person who misguides others in the name of religion. So here, Prabhupada talks about two categories. One is someone who doesn't really worry about, who doesn't do anything about religion, who doesn't really preach the wrong things. So that person is even better than someone who actually misguides people because that particular person is committing a very, very serious offense. Any any reflections before we move on to the next verse? This was about the non-devotees, and we will quickly go through 11, which is about devotees, which really, will be something that we would definitely be inspired by. So I'll read out the Sanskrit verse. Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavita hrita saroja ase shrute kshita patho nanunata pumsam yadyadviyata urugaya vibhavayanti tattadvapu pranayase sadanugrahaya. So would somebody like to read the translation?
Am I read, Prabhuji?
Yes, Puja Mataji.
Yes. Oh my Lord, your devotees can see you through the ears by the process of bona fide hearing, and thus their hearts become clean, and you can take your seat there. You are so merciful to your devotees that you manifest yourself in the particular eternal form of transcendence in which they always think of you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's so beautiful to just listen and hear this, isn't it? So the Lord fulfills your desire based on how you like to perceive Him. So if you'd like to perceive Him as Bal Gopal, then He manifests Himself as Bal Gopal, Lord Damodar. If you'd like to think of Him as a lover, then He comes as Krishna, the cowherd boy, for the gopis, and we have seen in the Bhagavad Gita how when Arjuna wants to see, I mean, after he, hears about the opulences of the Lord, he gets inspired to see the Lord in his universal form, and the Lord, comes to him in his universal form, and then of course Arjuna says, "I've seen you in your universal form, but can you please come back to your personal form in which because that's the mood in which I love you because you're my dear friend. And then he comes back to his two-armed self. So for a pure devotee, the Lord always, and we have enough examples of in the Bhagavatam, where he manifests himself in the form that the devotee likes to worship him. And that's also say something very, very important about our Lord, where he becomes subordinate to the desire of the devotee. Now, which Lord have you heard who will really, become subordinate? And he doesn't really need to do this because he's the supreme personality of Godhead. So, but his devotion to us, his bhakti, and his love towards us, makes him subordinate, to us, to this particular mood of bhakti, and that again comes only if we can have a personal relationship and do not get merged like how we could get merged in the Brahma Jyoti. And this is also confirmed. He's also pliable in terms of the transcendental loving service of the devotee. So a pure devotee can really ask, the Lord, and he will always fulfill his or her desires. There is a caveat that Prabhupada says. He also says is that the Lord is never an order supplier of the devotee. So it's not that he does anything. Um, he does not do something like in an involuntary way. He always does this because he voluntarily wants to offer his love, and he wants to fulfill the desire of his devotees. So there are a couple of like terms here which I'm just going to highlight in the interest of time. So there is a term that's used which is called Shrutekshita. So the Shrutekshita path is to hear from bona fide devotees who are conversant with the Vedic wisdom, free from mundane sentiment. So that's why there is a beauty of Shruti, because we can really purify our heart, and how all our impurities go, because we are just listening to Prabhupada. So when we hear Vaishnavas, when we hear devotees like talk about the pastimes of the Lord, that means that we are clearly following a path where we are getting inspired, and that just helps us to become cleansed of all the material rubbish. And it also helps us to attach ourselves to one of the transcendental forms. And that can be any form, as Prabhupada says here. It's due to natural inclination. So we all are, each and every living entity is originally attached to a particular type of transcendental service. And that's why, we see that, the spiritual world, in the spiritual world, there are many dhams. There is Ayodhya Dham, there is a Dwarka Dham, and depending on whatever form of Lord that you want to really worship, you can the Lord makes Himself available, and then you are in eternal loving service of the Lord in the form that you really have a natural inclination to love Him as. So, and that's where Lord Chaitanya also says that the living entity is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But as we come back into this conditioned situation, we forget from time to time, we indulge in material engagements, and that's why it's so important for us to really practice regulative devotional service of the Lord. And there is a form, this attachment is called Swarupa Siddhi. And what it really means is that the Lord is always there with us. I mean, He sits with us as as a Paramatma. He listens to us, He observes us, He guides us. The question is, He doesn't really reveal Himself to us unless we desire to know Him. And that's why Prabhupada says that the Lord remains concealed to the non-devotees who are just serving the sense gratification, and He's never visible to the pseudo-devotees who worship the demigods. And but He's always prepared to respond to the desires of a pure unconditional devotee who's free from all tinges of material infection. And that's the aspiration that we all have, to be able to become that pure devotee who can remember the Lord at all points of time, who can perform devotional service and be able to manage our material duties with our spiritual duties. So that's what really Brahma is saying. So in verse 10, he speaks about the symptoms of a non-devotee and how we need to be aware of not being just partially liberated through the Brahma Jyoti, because the only way you can really break the cycle of birth and death or come to full liberation is when you perform devotional service of the Lord. And then in the next verse, he speaks about how he fulfills all your desire, but he's never going to make himself available to you till you have a desire to reach out to him. Quite beautiful, isn't it? So happy to hear any reflections, any questions, any comments.
Hare Krishna, Madan Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. So I just want to ask you one question. Merging in Brahmajyoti and becoming one with the Lord, is that the same thing?
A good question. So one is in the form of his energy, the spiritual energy, and the other is in the form of the Lord himself. So which one do you think would be more, which would be higher?
I was like thinking that, Mayavadi say like, I am Atma, you are Atma, so we are same as God. Right?
And that's again a concocted, like religion. So it is something. It's their own perception of, they have interpreted that to suit their inclinations, but that's not really true. So yeah, I mean, we can all say that I'm God, you're God, but then we do know that we are not. We could be part and parcel of the Lord, but then we are just like a drop. I mean, a drop in the ocean. So just because we're a drop in the ocean and we have the same qualities of the Lord doesn't make us the Lord.
No, it doesn't. So merging in Brahma Jyoti is probably higher than becoming one with the Lord.
What would other devotees say to that?
I'm not sure. I just think.
No, that's a valid question. So would anybody like to respond to Madhvi Mataji's question?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, can I try, please?
Yes, please.
So in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is saying that you are my children, you are missing me, I'm missing you, and I want you to come back home, back to me. So why do you want to go through other people? You come directly on the escalator. Why you want to go via the stairs? So what happens is when you do the yoga or you meditate and you think, and all the pious activities you will accredit, once you will at the end of death merge with the Brahma Jyoti. But when your pious activities is finished, you'll come back to earth and you'll be given an opportunity once again to perform devotional service, become the servant of the Lord, and then go back home. So Krishna is saying your birth is so valuable. Why you want to waste your birth? You become my devotee, worship me, and come back to me, back to Godhead. This is my understanding. Sorry for any mistake if I've made it.
Not at all. I think it was beautifully put. So we heard earlier today that even when you go to the even when you achieve realization in the Brahma Jyoti, where you become one with the with the energy of the Lord, you still fall back. You still fall back into material existence. So it's temporary, and that's because you're still not pure in your consciousness, and secondly, you haven't really achieved. You haven't really attained the spiritual world, which is Vaikuntha Lok. So anyone who merges with the Brahman at some point, they will fall back to the material world, and then they'll go through the whole process again. So that's why the supreme way of that's why devotional service is so important. And Mataji, like explained that very beautifully. So it's a very simple process. I mean, we understand understand love, isn't it? We understand what it means to love, what it means to serve. So why don't we put that loving propensity to the form of the Lord? I mean, in the way that we like to perceive Him, whether it's like a child, whether it's a lover, whether it's a friend or a master. So that's a more blissful way of reaching the Lord, rather than merging in the Brahma Jyoti, where you're very sure that you're not even going to be achieving, because you're going to come back to material existence again. So in a nutshell, uh, it's definitely, it does make a lot of sense to really, to build that, that personal relationship with the Lord through devotional service, rather than the impersonalists who are happy with just, reaching the Brahma Jyoti. Does that answer your question, Madhvi Mataji?
Yeah, I do understand that Brahma Jyoti is the impersonal aspect of Lord.
Yeah.
My question was that is it same merging with the Lord, becoming one with the Lord, and merging in Brahma Jyoti, is that same thing?
Uh, you may not. I mean, because you're building a relationship with the Lord, so it would be the first one is not, you're not really becoming one with the Lord, because you are having a loving exchange with the Lord. So you may be part and parcel of Him, but in the spiritual world, you are having the transcendental loving exchanges. So there is still, you don't become completely one with the Lord, like the way you become with the Brahma Jyoti. So the two of them are quite different in that way.
Okay. Okay. I was just getting a little bit confused with those two.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, you can of course merge with the Brahma Jyoti, in which
Mm,
case you lose yourself completely. But as a spiritual soul, you may have the same quality of the Lord, but then you get separate, because that's how you can have that reciprocal relationship. Because if there are not two of you, then uh, if you're merged, then who's going to be the object of your love?
yeah.
So
Yeah. So,
yeah.
there are like, is it 6 steps of liberation? I think, is it 6 steps of liberation?
Yeah,
And,
I mean, that could be like, yeah, that could be like, three, you could have like three steps. So the first step is really, the Brahmajyoti, which is the impersonal one. And then the second is the Paramatma, and the third is the Bhagwan. So you can look at it three, but then yes, that could be many more steps to really help get that realization.
no, I meant liberation.
You said liberation.
Yeah.
So,
So they're like what is it called? Like becoming, uh, uh, getting the same planet, going to same planet as the Lord, becoming, having the same riches as the Lord, or the same form of the Lord. Yeah.
okay,
So
okay, Madhuri Mataji.
in that, where they're saying that becoming one with the Lord is not accepted by devotees, isn't it?
Yes, it's not accepted by devotees, because
Yeah.
because if you become one with the Lord, then you lose the um you lose the possibility of developing a relationship with
Okay.
him. And if you don't do that, then you will not be able to perform devotional service. And then and so and so the and so at it's not possible. So you can't really practice bhakti if you are merged into a particular whether it's the Brahma Jyoti, or whether it's the Lord. So we always see us as being part of the Lord, but then like also separate from him, because we can then have that loving exchange. So that's one. So so what you did mention is that there are planets. So if you were to look at so there is the Earth, and then you have like seven heavenly planets, and then seven lowly planets. So liberation can take you
Yes,
to
Sister
like
Wakewood.
can take you to like the demigods. So you can actually go to
Yeah.
Indralok, Brahma Lok. But then why would you want to go to all of that when you have a direct pathway,
Yeah, so
as
one of the
Mataji mentioned?
Vaikuntha. No, I meant
Yeah, to
like
Vaikuntha.
Vaikuntha planet, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
So is there such thing as becoming one with the Lord? And is there an example?
I haven't heard of becoming one with the Lord as an
Mm.
example. Yes, it's used. It can be used in a figurative way, saying that when you become one with the Lord, you are performing like loving exchanges with Him. But then I don't think you lose your individual entity as a soul. So you're an individual soul. You continue to be that, and you perform, loving service, to the Lord. So you don't necessarily become one with the Lord. But I mean, if there is anyone who can clarify this a little bit more, would invite you to unmute yourself. Mataji's question is, becoming one with the Lord. So what does that really mean? And what does that mean for performing devotional service?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji.
Sorry, I'm outside. That's why I'm not participating. So
No
Mataji is
worries.
saying the 6 opulences of the Lord, right? That was his meaning, 6 opulences of the Lord. But we have those in minute quantity. We cannot have them as much as the Lord have them. That's what she's saying, the strength, the beauty, the wealth, and the renunciation, and all six qualities of the Lord. We cannot get, we have all in minute quality because we are a drop in the ocean. So it's very, very little. We cannot merge into Krishna. We merge into Brahman Jyoti, which is like emptiness. And then in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, and verse 22, it says, China Punya Mrityu Loka Vishanti. You come back to this material world. Yogis, they do big tapasya just because they want to roam around in our planetary system. We don't want that. Devotees don't want that. We don't want like bargain with the Lord. We want to be the servant. Our constitutional position is servant of the Lord. We want to serve Him. That's why we are endeavoring to go in the Vaikuntha Loka, where we will be trained to go in Goloka Vrindavan. We don't go directly in Goloka Vrindavan. Even we take a small job in this material world, we have to have training. So we go in Vaikuntha Loka, millions of Vaikuntha Lokas. We go there, we get trained. Then when we are mature in our service, then we are transferred to Goloka Vrindavan. We don't go to Goloka Vrindavan directly. So then if you merge, if you want to get something from the Lord, you merge in the Brahmajyoti, you come back. And then you start from, I don't know what species of life. We have 8.4 millions of species of life. So we will go back into the lowest one. So that is, but I hope my Mataji understand what we're talking about here. Because maybe she has a misconception.
Mataji, I was talking about like Salokya, Samipya, Sarupya, Sarsi,
Yes,
Sarsi,
that
and
is
Sayujya. So these are the liberation, isn't it? The one I'm talking about is becoming one with the Lord, or like say merging with the Brahma Jyoti. Is that both the same thing?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, can I have a attempt at...
Go ahead.
Shailesh Prabhu, please go
sure.
ahead. Yes.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so there are 5 types of liberation, and there are different gradations in these 5 liberations. The bottom of each of the bottommost is the Sayujya, which is the impersonal Brahman merging with the impersonal Brahman. So there are different stages of liberation. There are 5, not 6. The next one up is the Sahasri, which is having the same opulence as the Lord.
Yeah.
Then you have the Sarupya, which is having the same form as the Lord. So in Vaikuntha, everyone has 4 arms, like the Lord. And that's the distinguishing factor of Vaikuntha. Then you have the Samipya, which is the staying near the Lord. As you go further up, you have Salokya, which is staying in the same lok or the planet as the Lord. So as a devotee, we're not actually interested in any sort of liberation. We're interested in just devotional service. And even these liberation forms can be binding. But as devotees, we're actually not really interested in any form of liberation. We're actually interested only in serving the Lord, no matter where we are. So there are very different degrees. So Vaishnava is not interested in any form of liberation. So I think to get caught up in trying to understand types of liberation is fine speculatively in terms of intellectual understanding, but what Prabhupada has taught us is actually, and what our Shastras say, is we should be beyond any form of liberation. So that's very
I
my attempt at
understand.
trying to give you a little bit of...
That's very clearly understandable, Prabhu. I understand that very clearly, but thank you for explaining again. My question was that becoming one with the Lord or merging in Brahma Jyoti, is that the same thing?
So there's a different level of maturity required in terms of understanding bhakti. One, merging with the Lord in bhakti means that you're of the same bhav in wanting to love him. But we never lose our identity. Krishna never wants us to lose our identity. So actually, when you merge in terms of Brahma Jyoti, you're temporarily losing your identity, although you don't never actually lose it. And as you say, it's a temporary
Moksha,
state.
yeah.
So it's only a temporary state. And as Prabhu just explained, that once your Sukriti is over, you come back again to the material world. So you haven't actually reached the spiritual world. As Sayujya, you actually are still bound only in the Brahma Jyoti, not into the Vaikuntha lokas.
Yeah. I understand that. Merging in Brahma Jyoti, again, I understand that. But what is becoming one with the Lord mean?
Becoming one with the Lord in terms of pleasing him and serving him. So that is a conceptual becoming oneness. It's not actually a merging in terms of the Atma becomes one with the Lord. That is a Mayavadi philosophy. We never actually merge with the Lord in that respect. We're always, Krishna has given us an identity, and our identity remains eternally individual. So we don't actually, in Vaishnava philosophy, you don't actually physically merge with the Lord in that respect. You only merge in terms of your devotion and bhakti, in terms of the rasa.
In terms of rasa, okay.
Yeah. So it's not a physical merger. The Atma and Paramatma are separate, all the way one and the same in terms of we are part and parcel of him. It's this Abhidya philosophy where there's oneness and there's difference. It is quite a potent part of the philosophy to understand. Actually, it is.
I understand that we are like same, but in quality, but not in quantity.
Yeah,
I understand that.
Sorry, Prabhu, I've taken a little bit more.
No, I think that, thank you so much. I think that's really helpful. So again, we don't become one with the Lord, and the way we understand that, at least in like in ISKCON is, and the way we understand is that it's only in the mood. And I think Shailesh Prabhu, I think you made that. So we're not losing our identity, but because you need to have a relationship, you need to be different in order to be able to have that loving exchange. And that's the mood that we can talk about it being one with the Lord, and in terms of the mood, but not physically so, because we still retain our original identity. Well, I think thank you so much for a most like enlightening discussion. So I don't know. I mean, any final reflections before we conclude today? And is that maybe we can begin? We can have the Vaishnava mantra. Maybe one of you can just do that to wrap up today's discussion. Would anybody like to lead that?
Before we wrap up, I just wanted to thank you. Thank you very much for a wonderful class and for engaging all the devotees in an interactive session. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Shri Kachuri Mataji, would you like to lead us through the...
Yes, Prabhuji. First of all, may I say what a wonderful class. Thank you so much for explaining everything so nicely. I'm sure everyone enjoyed our session today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for the wonderful class. Thank you so
very much.
Okay, let's
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you for the excellent
class.
Let's all put our hands together and let's pray the Vaishnav prayer. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. Anantakoti Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srimad Bhagavatam ki
jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all so much for joining today.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Madan Prabhu. Hare Krishna.